You like this?
Are you sure they were moms and not blossoms? They were blossoms.
Really?
Those were not promoted.
I know. They're really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, blossoms. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. Okay.
That was really good.
Sir, how are you? Good to see you.
Good.
That's no.
Today they were talking. Okay.
You already, but I don't know if we're filming it. Shabbat Shalom, welcome. I just want to make sure that this thing is on before we start.
I mean, I can see a picture here, but let's see. 2 people entered. Yeah, it's, I mean, it's saying that you're on Zoom.
Okay, well, welcome Shabbat Shalom. Thanks for everyone, for this small group, but hearty group coming out on this very cold evening. I wanted to thank Reverend Austin for allowing us to be here and for Stephen Carrion, and he's going to come up and just say a few words of welcome.
Good evening and welcome. It's always good to be here with CSK. Son did his bar mitzvah with CSK, so it was just a special time to spend.
So we're going to start with Shma Koleinu. I don't know if you guys know this too, but it's going to be pretty boring if you don't sing with me. So the words are pretty easy. Shma Koleinu. Ine matovu manai, shebedachim gam yachad. Ine matovu manai, shebedachim gam yachad. Ine matovu manai, shebedachim gam yachad. Ine matovu manai. 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 Shebedachim gam yachad. Thank you. That was nice. This is a hearty group. We're small, but we're mighty. No one can see it, but they can hear it. I'd like to call Rebecca up to help us light the candles. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lecha likner shashana. Blessed God, let your light enter our souls and our hearts. On this Shabbat, we pray that you will grant us and our loved ones rest and renewal. May the light of these candles drive out from among us all tensions and anxiety. Send your blessing to our children, that we may walk in the ways of the Torah and your light. And we turn to the third page of our prayer book for Lecha Dodi. Welcome the Sabbath bride. This is our jazzy version of Lecha Dodi. This is me and Kelly. We're here all week. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Kava, Enei Shabbat Mikhaela. 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 Shemor v'zachor v'gibor echad. Ishmi'anu el ha'michad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad. V'shem u'tiferet u'le'tzilat v'lecha Dodi. Lecha Kava, Enei Shabbat Mikhaela. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Kava, Enei Shabbat Mikhaela. Lekrat Shabbat lechu v'necha, ki mekorecha bracha, merosh b'kedem mesilcha. Sof ma'aseh benach Shabbat lecha Dodi, Lecha Kava, Enei Shabbat Mikhaela. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Kava, Enei Shabbat Mikhaela. Itoreri, Kiva orechu uri shirtaberi. Kiva orechu Enei Shabbat Mikhaela. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Kava, Enei Shabbat Mikhaela. Rise and face the entrance. Ohi v'shalom ateret ba'alam, gam v'simcha uv'sohova, toch emunei am seula. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Kava, Enei Shabbat Mikhaela. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Kava, Enei Shabbat Mikhaela. It's a funny story about that. When my son was 5, I think I said to him on Friday afternoon, "We have to clean up for Shabbat. It's going to be Shabbat. We need to clean up. Shabbat is like a bride," I told him, because that's where this particular poem, how it was interpreted, is that Shabbat was the bride, and the mystics would go and greet the Sabbath, all dressed in white. And I said, Shabbat is the bride, and so we have to clean up for her. And he looked at me and said, "Ew, it's a girl." So, I just cleaned up. The meaning of the Sabbath is to celebrate time rather than space. 6 days a week, we live under the tyranny of things, of space. On Shabbat, we try to become attuned to the holiness in time. It is a day on which we are called upon to share in what is eternal in time, to turn from the results of creation to the mystery of creation, from the world of creation to the creation of the world. We stand for the Baruch Hu. Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? You're alive. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidbaro ma'aviv arabim b'chokhmah poteach sha'arim u'bitmuna mishanei kitim u'machalif et hazmanim u'mesader et hakukavim b'mishmarateim barakir kirtzona borei yom b'layla golel or mipnei hoshech v'hoshech mipnei or u'meivir yom u'meivi layla u'mavdil bein yom u'bein layla Adonai tzvaot shema El Chai V'Kayam Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Leolam Va'ed Baruch Atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravi. Roll into dark and roll into light. Night becomes day and day turns to night. Borei Yom B'Layla Golel Or Mipnei Choshech Golel Or Mipnei Choshech V'Choshech Mipnei Or. Everlasting love you have offered your people Israel, by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai, our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night, we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people, Israel. We rise for the Shema. Shma And you shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And these words which I command you on this day shall be in your heart, shall be in your heart. And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and you shall speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and when you rise up, and you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be for frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house, and upon your gates, and upon your gates, that you may remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God. And before we turn to the Bichamocha, we just recall that during that this Shema V'ahavta that we just sang was written by a very famous female composer named Debbie Friedman, who died a few years back. And whenever we do this song, I'm reminded of her because I actually grew up in a little town that her aunt was one of the people I went to Sunday school with, and she was someone I was close to. Debbie Friedman really wrote music for a female voice. She's really the first person who did that. So whenever we go through and try to figure out which tune we're going to do for which prayer, it gives me a lot of pride and pleasure to be able to sing that tune in her memory because she died a few years ago. And it's so easy for me to sing because it was like written for a female voice. So we're going to turn to Micha Mocha. We're not going to do the Debbie Friedman version. We're going to do the Rick Rick version. He's also a great composer, but we have to transpose it. Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha nedar b'kodesh. Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha nedar b'kodesh. Nora tehilot, oh say farewell. Nora tehilot, oh say farewell. Who is like you? Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai? Moses and the children crossed the sea. They sang to you with songs of praise. Who is like you, Adonai? Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha nedar b'kodesh. Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha nedar b'kodesh. Who is like you? Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai? Moses and the children crossed the sea, sang to you with songs of praise. Who is like you, Adonai? Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedor hakodesh. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedor hakodesh. A song of joy on the day of Shabbat. It is good to give thanks to Adonai, to sing to the name that is beyond speech, and to still speak in the morning of your kindness and your faithfulness in the night. On harp with the voice and lyre together, I am so happy as I become aware of the miracles of life and how so much mystery provides me with such blessing. How great are the works of creation, how deep the underpinnings of all that exist. And before we sing this Hashkimenu, this is a prayer that we often say before we go to sleep. And it is found on the page, I wish this had page numbers, but right after the Michamotha. 14. It does have page numbers, I just don't have page numbers. So if you will join me, it's Hashkimenu Adonai Eloheinu. It's pretty easy. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom, L'shalom. V'chamidenu Malkeinu L'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, until we wake with morning light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Oh, Adonai. This part's just not man. Amen. 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 One more time. Amen. Prayer is our attachment to the utmost. Without God in sight, we are like scattered rungs of a broken ladder. To pray is to become a ladder on which thoughts mount to God to join the movement toward Him, which surges unnoticed throughout the entire universe. We do not step out of the world when we pray. We merely see the world in a different setting. The self is not the hub, but the spoke of the revolving wheel. Walking 3 steps forward, then 3 steps back is a traditional act when praying the Amidah. Perhaps in choosing to perform this act, we indeed climb up the ladder to offer our thanks to God for the blessings of our lives, and we walk back down the ladder, ever more committed to bringing those blessings to others. Please rise. tiftach. Na 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 ufiagi Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu 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 Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzhak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah El Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanura El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tavim Bekanei Hakol B'Zocher Hastelot V'Imahot U'Mevi Gula L'Bnei B'neihem L'man Shemo B'Yahava Melech Hozer U'Moshia U'Magin Baruch atah Adonai Magin Avraham Bezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai B'chayei hakol Torah U'Moshia Mechaker Chaim B'Chesed B'chayei hakol Barachamim Rabim Somech Noflim B'Rafeh Holim U'Matir Asurim U'Mechayei Emunato L'Shegei Afar Michamocha Bal Gerubot U'Midom Melech Melech Megid U'Mechayei U'Matzmiach Yeshua Ve'emanata L'Chachayot Hakol Baruch atah Adonai Mechayei Hakol Akakidosh V'Shemcha Kidosh Kedoshim B'chol Yom Baruch Hasema Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. I am a Jew because the faith of Israel demands no abdication of the mind. I am a Jew because the faith of Israel requires all the devotion of my heart. I am a Jew because in every place where suffering weeps, the Jew weeps. I am a Jew because at every time when despair cries out, the Jew hopes. I am a Jew because the world of Israel is the oldest and the newest. I am a Jew because Israel's promise is the universal promise. I am a Jew because for Israel the world is not complete. We are completing it. And I am a Jew because for Israel humanity is not created, we are creating it. I am a Jew because Israel places humanity and its unity above the nations, above Israel itself. I am a Jew because above humanity, image of the divine unity, Israel places the unity which is divine. We pray for peace. You may be seated. We pray for peace with Shalom Rav. Page 18. Shalom Rav Yisrael, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael, Tasim Le'olam. Do that one more time. Shalom Rav Yisrael, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael, Tasim Le'olam. Ki atah hu melech hador, lechol hashalom. Ki atah hu melech hador, lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael, Tasim Le'olam. B'tov B'nei Levorech et Ha'amcha Yisrael. B'choleinu lechosha b'shlomecha. We take a minute for silent prayer. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. Before we turn our prayers to those who are in need of healing, I want to ask those of us who are gathered here if they would like to call out a name of someone we're thinking of.
Elaine Cahan. Jacob Earl. Danielle survives.
And we keep all of those people in our hearts as well as anyone else who's needed healing, and we join together to sing the Misha Berach. Misha Berach, may the source of strength, who hast thou once before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. Let us say, Amen. Hallelujah. 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 We shall bless those in need of healing with refuge, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Hallelujah. 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 Shabbat Shalom again. I'm so happy to be with you again, and for the first time for me, I think in person in a long time. I don't think I've been in person with y'all since the high holidays. Crazy. And I'm glad we're here again because I'll tell you, just the Zoom thing doesn't cut it for me. I was thinking about what to say this evening. The Torah portion is Terumah. And just to refresh your memory, the Israelites are still wandering through the desert. And recently we've run into some issues, notably the golden calf incident. We don't need to dwell on that, but it wasn't our finest moment, right? And right after that, and after Moses finally comes down from the mountain, right? We are told that we are supposed to build this tabernacle, this huge place. In fact, the line is, let them make for me a sanctuary that I may dwell in their midst. Now, this is an interesting thing because really, God is not in time or space, right? There's a profound paradox in this statement. If God doesn't exist any one place, then why are we building God this tabernacle for God to dwell in our midst? What does this mean? Well, it says that we should also, in order to build this, that every Israelite, men and women, everybody there, needs to bring a free will offering. So that means nobody's making you bring it. No one's going around and saying, you need to bring this, you need to bring this, you need to give this amount of money or whatever. Whatever moves you to give, you are supposed to give. And this particular act of giving will then create a tabernacle that is worthy of God's presence. It's actually a very important moment because it's the first time in the history of the Jewish people where we have done something for God instead of God doing something for us. So up until this point, we've been freed from slavery, seas parted, the commandments have been given, there have been honey from a rock, all kinds of great and glorious things have happened, and we've done a lot of kvetching too, right? We've been asking God to do a lot for us, and we've been complaining a lot too. And this is the first time that in response to this major kvetch, which resulted in like the golden calf situation, that instead we hear, you give, and in exchange, God will somehow be present. It's a really interesting thing. So I was thinking about this, and the best experience I had of a congregation or community really giving is my first student pulpit, which was in Harlingen, Texas. And as you probably know, because you're Texans, there's not a lot of Jews in Harlingen, Texas, like 5. And when I flew down there, I had never even been to Texas. In fact, I had a fiance in Houston, and the seminary in Cincinnati said, let's send her someplace close to her fiance. And then I landed in Houston, and there was like 2 more hours. I was like, what's this close to Houston? So I get down there in the middle of September. I'm from Massachusetts, and the doors open to the airport, and a wall of heat hit me. Like it was like I walked into an oven, and I couldn't believe it. I absolutely couldn't believe it. And this man drove up in a Suburban. I'd never even seen a Suburban, and threw me the keys and said, can you drive this? Because I'm going to be there for 10 days, and you need to drive this. I was like, unbelievable. So I climb into this thing, and we drive through this town, and it's not very pretty, right? I mean, it just isn't. I don't know how else to say it. But I swear I was wanting to like stop the car and say to him, like, what are Jews doing here? We've suffered enough. Like, what are you doing? So I'm starting to get a little nervous. So we get to the synagogue, and it is what I don't know, there used to be this skit on Saturday Night Live called Tiny Elvis. It was like the tiny temple. That's what I called it. It was the tiny temple. It's kind of covered in vines and stuff, and he opens it up, and we go to roll the Torah because it's about to be Rosh Hashanah, and so we had to roll it all the way from the Deuteronomy back to Genesis, which, as you know, takes a long time. So we go up, and they had a little ark. It looked like a puppet theater. It had like a little, drawstring where the curtain opened. And I thought, this is this little Torah. And he opens the curtain. Whoa, the hugest Torah I've ever seen in my life. I don't know what, it was like a Texas Torah. It was like on steroids, right? So we pull this thing out and we start rolling it. And I like to consider myself to be a fairly good conversationalist. And so I was trying very hard. I just met this man to make conversation. I'm getting nothing. How many kids? 3. What do you do? You know, yep, no, I mean, nothing. And we're rolling this thing and I'm schwitzing because it's like 1,000,000 degrees, you know what I mean? You just turn on the air conditioning. Finally, in the middle of this whole event, I thought, I mean, literally, I didn't know. I thought I was being punked or something. I couldn't believe it. He leaned back on his boots and he just went, big Torah. I thought, this is gotta be a joke, right? Like someone's joking. So as it turns out, I went back to this place for 2 years because they were so lovely to me. I mean, unbelievably nice people. And it was tiny, like this, I mean, really the size of this room was the whole synagogue. And I would come in and they knew nothing. They knew nothing about Judaism. They would literally sit there, smile at me, just, I would do everything. I would sing, I would speak, I would Torah, I would tap dance, everything. They didn't know anything. But they were so happy to be there. So one time, you know, we went for a board meeting and we went to Matamoros and we went across the border to Matamoros. Haven't been there, you know, it's like, yeah, right. I don't have to elaborate. So we all sat at this long table and they ordered margaritas and this was the board meeting. And I thought I was gonna have to say something important. It's the board meeting, right? So I started talking and all of a sudden I looked down the table and my friend, the gentleman who never said a word, went like this to me. And right behind me, this line of mariachi guys, oh, like that, you know, because they start loud and they stay loud. There's like no volume. And I was like, oh, okay, it's a board meeting. I realized there's a board meeting going on. They're just together, right? So anyway, afterwards we're walking to the car and Lewis says to me, this is the taciturn man, he said, you know, Rabbi, we don't know much down here, right? But that Torah and that synagogue that you saw, we built it. We built it with our own hands. And he told me the whole story of how they built it, how they raised money for it, how they physically built it, how one person went all the way to Mexico City to purchase this Torah and then brought it back. Let me tell you, this thing's huge. And they didn't ship it. They carried it with them because it was that important, obviously. They didn't want it to be damaged. And they carried it across the border and they created this little ark for it. And you know what it made me realize? That they didn't know technically that much about being Jewish. I mean, after all, I didn't either. They inflicted me on them. I was just a student. But what they did know was they knew how to be a community. They knew how to be a community so well that I believe that every time I was there and they were with me, that God was in their midst. In fact, there was a guy named Charlie who used to come in and he'd give me a big smile and then he'd look at me and he'd literally close his eyes and go to sleep for the entire time. And then as soon as the service ended, he was the first person to say, great sermon. I mean, he was so pleased to be there. And what I realized is the synagogue is really not about the reading of the Torah. It's definitely not about the sermon. It is definitely about the people who are there and what they have done to create that community. So as a teacher, which is what I do, that's my day job, this is my side gig, right? I know this. I know that if you do for others constantly, they actually, I don't know, it's sort of flat, it's one-dimensional. But when we ask others to give, right, we actually enable them. We enable them with a kind of gratitude. And in fact, the etymology of the word truma is an indicator of that. It means offering, but it also means to, like, sort of to elevate. So in some ways, what the Torah is telling us is that to give is to elevate ourselves, is to get closer to that divine presence, the Shekhinah, which also comes up in this very portion, which is like the indwelling of the Spirit of God. Shabbat Shalom. Just a few announcements. Journey resumes in person at the JCC this Sunday, 9:45, which is February 6th. Shabbat services will be held online only next Friday, February 11th, in Cantor Sarah Haas Lead. So you can visit the website or the homepage to sign up and receive a Zoom link for that. The service will also be streamed on Facebook and YouTube and what's this Roku? I don't even know what that is. What is that? Roku? Oh, it's a stream. I don't know anything. And then finally, we want you to save the date for quorum, which is Wednesday, March 16th, but there will be more details to follow. I have no idea what that is, but quorum will happen. Okay, I think that's it. Are there any other announcements that I need to cover? Okay, well, we will turn to the Koleinu, and I'd ask you to rise, please. Really wish that I could find the page numbers. Okay. Koleinu l'shavech l'adon ha'kol l'teikra l'yotzer b'reshit shelo asanu k'goyei ha'aratzot ve'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama shelo sam chelkeinu ka'hem ve'nor aleinu k'chol ha'amona אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר חיה אדוני ומלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. You may be seated or remain standing, whatever is your preference. Death is nothing at all. It does not count. I have only slipped away into the next room. Nothing has happened. Everything remains exactly as it was. I am I, and you are you. The old life that we lived so fondly together is untouched and unchanged. Whatever we were to each other, that we are still. Call me by the old familiar name. Speak of me in the easy way which you always used. Put no difference into your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes that we enjoyed together. Play and smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that is always was. Let it be spoken without an effort, without the ghost of a shadow upon it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same as it ever was. There is an absolute and unbroken continuity. What this death but a negligible accident? Why should I be out of mind because I'm out of sight? I am but waiting for you for an interval somewhere very near, just around the corner. All is well, nothing is hurt, nothing is lost. One brief moment and all will be as it was before. How we shall laugh at the trouble of parting when we meet again. Do we have any names that we'd like to add to our yard site list? Sarah Fisher, Henry Fishman.
Jack Metcalf, my Aunt Jean Garfield, Master Thich Nhat Hanh, the father of mindfulness, Jeffrey Friedman, his father, Rabbi Newton Friedman, Ben Tweedine, my mother, Lala Lazarus Vegas.
The Mourner's Cottage can be found on page 26. Yitkadal, Beit Kadash, Yerabah, Yama, Divrach, Yerate, Biam Nidmachute, V'chayechon, Biamachon, V'chayed, Ho Beit Yisrael, V'adala, Uvizman, Karim, Bimru, Yehesh, Rabba, Mibrach, Leolamo, Nehemiah, Yitrach, Vishtabach, Vitpar, Vitraman, Vitnase, Vichadar, Vichalel, Vichalal, Shmed, Visha, Burichu, Le'elam, Mikol, Berchata, Vishirata, Tushbechata, V'nechemata, Ta'miram, V'Haman, V'Imru, Amen. Yehi Shlama, Rabba, Min Shemaya, V'chaim, Aleinu, V'Alkol, Yisrael, V'Imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom, V'Ramah, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'Alkol, Yisrael, V'Imru, Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn. and comfort to all those who are bereaved. And we say together, Amen. You may be seated. And we're going to do, Kelly, are you with me? Shalom Aleinu. That's the only words. Shalom Aleinu, and then Salam. Ready? Shalom Aleinu. Shalom Aleinu. Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al kulam. Shalom Aleinu. Shalom Aleinu. Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam, salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Shalom Aleinu. Shalom Aleinu. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Shalom Aleinu, Shalom Aleinu, Shalom Aleinu, ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu kol ha'olam. Salam, salam, salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Shalom Aleinu, Shalom Aleinu, Shalom Aleinu, ve'al kulam. Shalom Aleinu, Shalom Aleinu, Shalom Aleinu, ve'al kulam. And before we go, we're just going to say a quick motzi and kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'atzavanu. Shabbat kodsho v'yahavu v'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron le'maaseh bereshit. Kihu yom tehilah l'mikra'e kodesh zecher l'tzilat mitzrayim. Kimanu v'achota yotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha yahavu v'ratzon hinchatanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom. That's right. Yes.